Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Young Eager Writers Show. My name is Michael Evans, and today I'm here with Millie Florence, who is a middle grade author and at the age of 15 has already published 2 novels, Honey Butter and Lydia Green of Mulberry Glen. She's also attended over a dozen events, has done numerous podcast interviews, and overall, I have to say, she's just killing the game. And I'm super excited to have her on today, and I'm really excited to see what insight and inspiration she can provide to us all today. So, hey, Millie, how's it going?
Great. It's awesome to be on the podcast. I'm super excited.
Yes, I'm very glad to have you on. I don't even know where to begin because there's a lot to talk about. I mean, the first obvious thing that to me is striking is she's only 15, and not only has she published 1 novel, but she's published 2, and you published your first at 13. So I'd just like to know, how did you first of all come to write a full-length novel at such a young age? I guess you must have been 12 at the time, already thinking about getting it published. How was that whole thought process, and what inspired you to go for it?
I mean, and I've said this before, so most people probably know this, but there has never been a time in my life where I didn't want to write stories. But if you're talking specifically publication, I think the first time actually publishing crossed my mind was when I was maybe 9. And around that age, I read a book called Swordbird. The girl was published by HarperCollins at age 12, and I read that when I was 9, and I'm like, I can do better than that, basically.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, it's a good book. I'm not dissing the girl who wrote it, but when you're 9 years old, you're skeptical of a lot of stuff. And so I was like, I can do that. I can do better than that. And that's when I really started thinking about, publishing, because again, I'd been writing books for ages, but yeah, that was the first time publication crossed my mind. My big problem, honestly, was always that I could never completely finish the first draft. I have a very creative, excitable brain, you could say, and I would start one story idea, but then I'd get bored of it, I'd go on to another, and I think this is a problem that a lot of young writers have. I've definitely encountered who struggle with that. It wasn't until I was 13, and November of 2017, I decided I was going to go for NaNoWriMo. I'd never done it at an age where I could actually type my own books, so it was technically my first time doing it. But when I was 5, I made my dad type out a story for me for NaNoWriMo, NaNoWriMo in quotes, because I was 5. So I wasn't really reaching a certain word count or anything. I just wanted to write a book in a month. Yeah, that was how Honey Butter was born, was November 2017. I did NaNoWriMo, and that's how I got the first draft done. So if you are a teen and you have not checked out NaNoWriMo, I highly, highly recommend you do. It actually surprises me sometimes how many people don't know about NaNoWriMo, but I still manage to meet people who have never heard of it. So go check it out. It stands for National Novel Writing Month. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And during that month, you completed the whole draft in that month, or was it kind of just motivation to really get a great start on it?
No, I completed the whole draft in the month.
That's awesome.
I completed it a few days before the end of the month, because it was kind of just the first time I'd ever been really, really strict, I guess you could say, and getting my word count done every day. So yeah, it definitely, it helped out a lot.
That was your first novel. You did that for Honey Butter, correct?
Yeah, Honey Butter.
That's awesome. Did you take that same discipline and apply it to when you were writing the first draft of Lydia Green of Mulberry Glen?
I did write part of Lydia Green of Mulberry Glen in NaNoWriMo, but it's twice as long as Honey Butter. So yeah. A lot of it was written in the weeks leading up to NaNoWriMo and in the weeks after NaNoWriMo. I think I finished it midway through December, the first draft of Lydia Green.
That's still super great. After publishing your first book at 13, which is super young but super, super awesome, and no matter what age you are, age really is just a number at the end of the day. Whether you're 110, which great for you that you're alive, or 5 years old, you can create great art, and you are a testament to that. But I was still wondering, throughout your first to second book, that progression that you had as an artist, what mistakes did you make in your first book that you corrected or learned and tried to improve on in your second book?
Some mistakes that I made in Honey Butter that, got better with Lydia Green. Let's see. Well, I know I said that my first drafts are always a really huge mess because I don't plot and I don't outline. But I think that was slightly less true for Lydia Green. It was a lot less of a mess. Yes, there were parts that weren't readable because I didn't totally finish it, but the plot itself was more cohesive than with Honey Butter. With Honey Butter, Sometimes I would just write things completely randomly that had nothing to do with the actual story that all got cut later. But because I'd been through the process once, I kind of had an instinct when I started writing Lydia Green for what would stick in the plot and what wouldn't. And that instinct, like once you write a whole book and go through that process, you gain these instincts and these skills, I guess. I hesitate to call them skills because I don't always totally know what I'm doing when I'm writing a book, if you know what I mean. So I would say instincts of just, what feels right and what makes sense for the story. And you just get better at that with the next book. So for that reason, my first draft, the plot of my first draft specifically, was a lot better in Lydia Green than in Honey Butter. Another thing that I noticed a lot was, and this isn't necessarily a mistake, but just an improvement, was that my ability to write fast really changed. I can remember when I was writing the first draft of Honey Butter, it would take me like 2 hours at least, usually more, to get to my word count goal for the day. So it's lucky I'm homeschooled. I have the time to do that. But with Lydia Green, I was usually, like, on a decent day, I was able to write 1,000 words per hour. I usually only did 1 hour of that because it's kind of exhausting. But I definitely, my ability to get the words out definitely sped up a lot. And I think that was one of the biggest things I noticed. Another thing I think that helped was I started kind of thinking about what would market well, and that sounds kind of bad, like from an artist viewpoint.
No, that's good. I think that's good. That's good for everyone to hear.
Yeah, but like what I knew readers would enjoy. Because like in Lydia Green, I'd never experienced having readers before. I mean, in Honey Butter, I'd never experienced having readers before. But in Lydia Green, when I was writing parts, I would get excited if I wrote a good scene, like, oh my goodness, my readers are going to enjoy that so much, because I knew I actually had readers. So I don't know if anyone that's ever listening to this podcast has read Lydia Green, but whenever I was writing the scenes with Quill in them, this one very quirky character who is a hobgoblin that lives in the magical libraries, I was just like, oh my goodness, this is going to be great. My readers are going to love this. And they did, which I think means that I did, gain those instincts for what my readers would enjoy. Quill is a lot of people's favorite character, and he's definitely, one of my favorite characters.
That's so great to hear. That's actually really exciting that you're beginning to pick up on the interests of your readers and then be able to craft a great story around it and add in things that make people love it. That's awesome. Being so young, because I think there's something to be said about, although age isn't always important, and I didn't want to make it the focus of this interview, and it certainly won't be. How have you developed such a sense of self-awareness, and what advice could you give to other writers in really finding themselves and having their own identity come through in their work? Because I think you do an awesome job at it.
Yeah, that's a pretty broad topic that, you could, I think there's been whole books written on that, but if I were to touch quickly, I would say, especially for teen authors, and something that people tell me is very mature. I don't necessarily see this as very mature, but it seems kind of obvious to me, but apparently adults think it's very mature, is to realize you are a kid and to realize you don't have as much experience as adults, because yes, age is just a number, and it doesn't really matter how old you are. You can still create great art, but you do have to realize that people are going to underestimate you, and that while nothing is impossible, there are certain disadvantages to trying to write things as a teen. You don't have as much life experience. I think just at the beginning in, acquiring your self-awareness is to realize when people are more experienced and better than you. I mean, it sounds old-fashioned, like listen to your elders and things like that, but I mean, my parents are amazing, and I've learned a ton from them that I've put into my books. There are several quotes from them that I put in my books. One specifically that my dad said once was, "I'm not a grown-up, just a kid who's been around for a while." I think no matter what age you are, at some point we do have to admit we are all children in some aspect of our life, and there's always more to be learned. And I think once you start to realize that, maturity is realizing how little you know in the end.
If you're interested in listening to the full version of this interview, you can find it at youngeagerwriters.org.